Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to our guest here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. We greatly appreciate it. We have Erin Kelley on the podcast. She goes to the University of Cincinnati. She's also a self-proclaimed coffee connoisseur, which, believe me, I need to get more into that. I definitely need to have my coffee some mornings. But she also works with women striving for mental and physical wellness. Erin, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Absolutely. So why don't you give us a little bit of backstory of what inspired you to make that healthy and fit change in your lifestyle?
Sure. So I've always been considered bigger. I was a 10-pound baby and then just continued to, I was a foot taller than everyone in my grade up until middle school and therefore always heavier as well. Danced competitively my entire life, but never had the dancer body type. So, my friends were 100 pounds and 5'5", and I was over here, 180 and 5'8". And after I stopped dancing in college, I just continued to gain weight and kind of like the whole freshman 15 turned into like the freshman 30. On top of all of that, I've struggled with mental health issues my entire life. So since I was 6 years old, and didn't really understand the link between mental and physical wellness until I started kind of getting into the fitness realm. So my freshman year of college, gained a bunch of weight, was really, really depressed, and kind of hit like but a really, really deep depression, hit rock bottom. And as I was coming out of that, I was really just working on my mental health, and I realized that if I could get a grip on my body image, I would feel so much better in other parts of my life. But I had this, for the longest time, just kind of believed that I was a bigger girl. I was always told, you're just a bigger person. You're just tall. This is your body type. You're stuck with it. And to a point, that's true. Like, I'm an endomorph to the core. But a girl, her name's Avery McCain, her transformation video went viral probably like 5 years ago. And I was looking at it on Twitter one day and I realized that her before was exactly what I looked like. We had the exact same body type. And that was when I first realized that if I wanted to lose weight and kind of get more fit, it was even possible. So that was kind of the first aha moment for me. And then I started off really small. So I would go to the gym when my friends wanted to go to the bars, and I figured I would just kill two birds with one stone. So I would stay home from the bars and I would go do something healthy as well. And I knew that going out and drinking wasn't going to be good for my mental health either. And then just over time, I just fell in love with it and wanted to dedicate more time and saw how my mental health improved with my physical health and how some things in the fitness industry can be really detrimental to other people's mental health. And that's when I really wanted to start bringing awareness to all of that as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, I have a similar experience sort of to you. We're just in the fact that, I was always super skinny as a kid, but like you, I'm 6'3" right now, but I was 6'1" when I was in 7th grade. So I was the tallest kid by far, but I was one of those guys where I tapped out. I was like 6'3" in 8th grade and I stopped growing. Like, I was one of those rare cases of the boy that, like, I dominated in every sport basically until I reached like my junior year in high school. That's because, everyone started to finally catch up to me. But it's one of those things where I definitely understand, being sort of the outsider where you're like 5 or 6 inches taller than everyone else in middle school. And it's just, it's great for sports, but other than that, it's really, it can be a huge struggle. But I also sort of like to make a comparison where if you were walking into a gym with 100 people in it, there's 100 different ways as to how people got in shape, whether it comes to their nutrition, the workouts that they do, how many reps they do. It's every single little facet really adds up to make a person look the way that they look. Was that hard for you starting out, sort of finding out what worked best for you? Because like I said, if you were to go up and talk to someone, what works best for them might not work best for you.
Sure. So I'm lucky enough that even though I've struggled with body image issues, I've always been rather confident. So I know for a lot of women, it's really, really intimidating walking into that gym for the first time. And although I was also intimidated and really uncomfortable, I really thrive in discomfort. So I like pushing boundaries. I like kind of challenging the status quo a little bit. So I figured, why not just jump into the weight training, because I hate cardio. I have always hated cardio, and I knew that if I wanted this to actually work, I wasn't going to touch a cardio machine for quite some time. And so I started off with Pinterest workouts because I didn't know any better. And so I was looking up, shoulder workouts for women and bicep workouts for women. And I would say probably after a couple months of doing that and seeing some changes and, seeing some muscle definition here and there, I realized that wasn't really cutting it. And as I went into my summer semester, I actually took a job at a Planet Fitness and, became friends with the trainers, and I had them correct my form on like lunges and things like that. And they were the first ones that were like, hey, you know, you can like train with like heavier weights than like 5 pounds, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that really influenced me and got me on the right track, especially, you know, talking to people who had been educated in the field for so long. So starting out, I was kind of a hot mess, but I think everyone is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I was lucky I had that little bit of background in weight training in high school, but I mean, the gym was a scary enough place for me because I was a freshman when my older brother was a senior and he was the starting varsity quarterback on the football team.
Oh.
So just imagine going to that weight room as a freshman when you go for freshman football workouts and everyone knows your older brother. So that was just a whole different thing for me where I was like, yeah, I can definitely understand how intimidating it can be. But I mean, probably the biggest myth that we love to bust on this show is that, you know, it's gotten better with Instagram, like I always say, over the last 5 years, but there's still so many women that when you talk to them, when they're just asking for ways on how to adapt a better and healthy lifestyle and how to lose weight, when you recommend weight training, you know, I'd say 75% of them just say like, oh, I don't want to get big. I don't want to get like huge. And they just don't realize the hard work that goes into it. Did you have that fear at all when you were starting off? I know you, like you said, you really thrive in, you know, nervous, pressured situations, or you really like that. But did you still have any thoughts in the back of your mind where you're like, oh, I don't want to get so bulky when you're starting out? And even if you didn't, what is your main response to women when you hear that?
You know what? I think the thought probably crossed my mind a few times, but also I've been big my entire life. So I was like, I can be big and what I thought was fat at the time, or I can be big and uber muscular.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'll take the latter. So, I mean, it definitely crossed my mind, but it's never been a huge concern for me. But it does make me laugh now how often I hear it. I'm in a sorority. And so when I started weightlifting and stuff, that was a lot of the, you know, lashback I'd hear is, well, aren't you afraid you're going to get bulky? Like, what if you put on too much muscle? And I would look at them and be like, I've been training for, at the time, like, 8 months, and I've put on a pound of muscle, maybe. Like, I know from personal experience, it's just not that easy. And I think the biggest issue is just how non-transparent a lot of competitors are about steroid use, especially with women. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's illegal, and I understand everybody is going to choose how they want to talk about it, or if they even decide to use any sort of performance-enhancing drug. But you know, people look at bikini competitors and physique competitors and figure competitors, and they think that that just happens somewhat naturally. And for the superhuman woman, it does. But for the most part, people need, you know, some outside help. And I think the more we start to talk about that and kind of lower the stigma of that, the more people will kind of understand that that's just not going to happen overnight.
Absolutely. I mean, like you said, there always is like that 1 in 100 competitor that like just is naturally like that. I mean, you will have those cases, but more often than not, yeah, it is drug related, because I have met some people where like they really are genetically blessed, where I was like, okay, yeah, this person is definitely not taking anything. It's just that like when they were born, for some reason, they were just said, you know, like they're allowed to do this. But a lot of other people, yeah, I look at them and I was like, okay, I'm not going to mention it, but yeah, we know that something's definitely going on there. But yeah, I mean, my backstory too, I always love to tell the story of one of my good friends in college. When I started, you know, working out and getting bigger and stronger, she would always say like, oh, I really want to, you know, come work out with you, but I'm just afraid of getting big and huge. And then finally, after this went on for a couple months, and then finally one night I just snapped and said, look, the amount of weight that you carry in your purse when we go out to clubs or when we go out to eat weighs more than a lot of the dumbbells in the gym, and you're not gaining any muscle from lugging that thing around all the time. And that sort of finally convinced her, and then she went in and then she enjoyed it. And I mean, it's just one of those things, like, you just have to try it. Just like with a lot of things in life, as soon as you try it, it really is just, it's fine for you. You realize that, oh, I was really, you know, just thinking way too much. I really wasn't, you know, considering what's really going to happen. And like I said, if that was really the case, there'd be so many more muscular people on the planet if you could just pick up one weight and do that. So yeah, it is absolutely ridiculous. And the transparency is a huge thing. But what was your nutrition like before you went to college even, and then how'd that change, and then how'd that change when you adapted that healthy and fit lifestyle? Because believe me, when I went to college, you know, having burgers every day was really awesome for a while, but then I really had to amp up those workouts to keep it off.
Right. So my family is a huge blessing. I absolutely love them, but nutrition was never our strong suit. And I think that just goes back to like my grandparents weren't really educated on what, you know, healthy eating was and how to cook in the home. And so I grew up eating out a lot. Again, I was a competitive dancer, so it was Subway, lunch and dinner, because I was going from school to one dance practice to another. Skipping breakfast usually. I've been a caffeine addict since probably middle school, just because to keep up with my schedule. Mm-hmm. So my nutrition was less than great. I think a lot of it stems from just not even knowing what I was putting in my mouth, or what was on my plate. Going into college made it even harder because, again, you're in the dorms. It's not like I was cooking before, but I wasn't having anyone cook for me either. Luckily, I roomed with a vegan and a bikini competitor, so they kind of educated me a little bit. And they're great people. They weren't shaming me in any way, but I just kind of picked up on some of their habits. And so I found myself choosing healthier options, not really knowing why, or not really understanding why certain foods were healthier than others. And so the very first step I took in my like healthy lifestyle, I don't even recommend, but I did like a 30-day sugar cleanse from Pinterest, which I look back at and laugh, but I have always had a huge sweet tooth, and I still do to this day. And so I think it did help me establish, like, I do think it kind of changed my taste palette, because I was introduced to more fruits and vegetables. I tried an avocado for the first time, realized I liked that. And after I did that, I asked my friend what I should do, and he was like, you should cut out every carbohydrate in your diet. Ooh. So I did that. And I mean, I was about 200 pounds when I started, so I got down to like 170 in a couple months. Yeah, and I don't really recommend doing it the way I did it. Looking back, like, it got me to where I am, but I developed some really unhealthy eating patterns and kind of some disordered eating and a really unhealthy relationship with food. But yeah, I did that. And then after about a year, I started counting my macros and hired a coach and started working with him and kind of started developing somewhat healthier habits around food.
Yeah, so many people have so many different stories, and rooming with a vegan, I don't know how I'd enjoy that at college, but I mean, that's just one of those experiences where, just learning new things is a really, really huge thing too when it comes to, you're going to need, most people don't realize too, one of the big things I like to point out is that for a lot of people, when you start working out and adapting that healthy and fit lifestyle, you're going to need to eat a lot more than you even ate before you started working out, and that's for a lot of people. Did you find that to be true? Or did you, like you said, you cut down on carbs and let that too, but for all the other stuff, did you tend like to eat more now than you did back then?
I do now. Yeah. For sure. 100%. Yeah. So when I first hired my coach, he was like, well, what are your macros at? And if I remember correctly, it was like 25 fat, 110 carb, and like 160 protein. Mm-hmm. And he cracked up and was like, you are not eating close to enough. And I was the smallest I had ever been at that point. And so he put me through a body recomp and was like, we're going to get your calories back up, continue to lose weight, put on muscle. It was like a magic pill I had taken. It's what it felt like. And then at that point, that was the most I'd ever eaten. I remember texting him and being like, I don't even know how to get all my calories in. Now I look back and laugh and I'm like, girl, you're fine. But now, especially that I bulked and now I'm at like this maintenance level right now. This is definitely the most I've ever eaten. And I finally have gotten to a point with my relationship with food that I'm like okay with eating this much too. And I know that like one day of going over my calories or macros isn't going to kill me the same way going under won't either. Yeah,
just the eating was a huge thing for me. I'll sort of give you a backstory for me. This was a week ago where I work at UPS, and I may be, higher up, but I still got to help out load packages every once in a while. We had a really, really, really busy day last week where I was on a dock for 11 hours, constantly lifting up heavy boxes that could weigh up to like 150 pounds, I think was the number one that I had. And I do it all by myself, but I was in a sweater because it was cold outside. And then, I weighed myself before I went to work just because I weigh myself just once a week. And it was just the one thing that I did. And I weighed myself afterwards. I had lost 3.5 pounds from that 12-hour shift, from all the sweating that I did and from all of the, so it's just one of those things where I just realized food-wise too. And even when I'm there, like I went through, I think, 11 or 12, I think, just full bottles of water that they brought in, like those Dasanis that they had in. So it was, it's just when you do put in all of that hard work and exercise, you do have to eat a lot more. And it also does wonders for your metabolism too.
It does.
Me and you are still both at that age where our metabolism is on its last hurrah before it goes into that adult metabolism where you can't really be eating milkshakes you can't eat milkshakes a lot, or I limit myself to like a Five Guys or a Burger King, once or twice a week at the most, depending on how much, exercise I've gotten in that week. But it's just, you just really have to enjoy it. But when it comes to your macros and that whole new diet, what would you say is the hardest thing for you to adapt when it came to that?
I think in general, as with most women, I've struggled to have a healthy relationship with food. Mm-hmm. And so I went from hating food entirely because I was overweight, and that's what I blamed all of that on. And so I just kind of ate whatever, and that was that, to restricting so much that I binged on the weekends. And then I really did view, and to some extent, again, it's true that nutrition really can control your progress. But I really let it like absolutely control my life. Like I was one of those women who wouldn't go out with their friends. And if I did, then I would binge. And I didn't really understand that like it was because of how much I was restricting. So I think that whole cycle and like being so like ashamed of how I would eat on like a weekend night compared to the rest of the week and trying to maintain this image of like this fit girl, I'm in a sorority, and I moved in with some girls who I wasn't super close with yet, my chapter, and they were like, oh my God, I can't believe that you like even eat pizza. And I'm like, okay, well, I ate like a whole pizza by myself like last weekend.
I could do a whole podcast on sorority girls. I mean, one of my friends was turned into a sorority, and I visited it a couple times. And sorority girls, I mean, that's a thing in and of itself that I'm just like, oh my God.
No,
but they are really good though. Like I do benefit from them, but just some of those sorority girls, I'm just like, oh my God, they take things way too seriously.
Right, and like that chapter has done wonders for me, and they have been the most supportive on my fitness journey, but a lot of them just didn't understand at first. So it cracked me up because they were so shocked to see that I ate even more than them, and then I was ashamed of eating more, and it was just all this huge mess. And basically until I kind of stopped tracking for a little while and stopped letting it control my life and watched just my body, like my cortisol levels dropped dramatically when I stopped tracking. And my body kind of leveled out and just did the thing it was supposed to do while I kind of ate intuitively. And figuring that out and how to eat intuitively and not view food as like bad or good, just as like a thing, has been years in the process. And now I'm kind of starting to track again just because I kind of want to go into like a mini cut over the winter, just to have something to do when I'm on break, honestly. Yeah. But I'm excited to do it now that like I don't feel the need to binge all the time, and I have this healthy relationship, but I think that's a struggle that a lot of women have.
One of the things that really doesn't get stressed too much, I don't think, especially on Instagram or on any other platforms, that, you know, women who have gone through those periods of weight loss, how has that sort of affected you mentally? Because like you said before, like you were always sort of known as sort of a bigger person, where, I mean, that mindset really just sticks in your mind, where you always just constantly think of yourself as a bigger person. But when you lost that weight and you went down to like 170, was that hard for your mind to adjust to the fact that like you weren't a big person really anymore? I mean, you were like a good, decent size. Was that a hard and difficult adjustment for your mind to sort of accept that now, or did you always just think of yourself still like as a big person because it's just been so ingrained in you?
So it's interesting. So I even when I was down at like 170, I still viewed myself as like, you know, a work in progress. And then I ended up at my smallest at like, I think like 145 or something. And not that like, I really don't believe the weight on the scale means all that much, but just to give you an idea. And I got a ton of positive attention, which I think a lot of people can understand, but and it was great. I'll be completely honest. Like when I came back over the summer, people I went to high school with didn't recognize me, and people who I was even best friends with were just like, oh my God, you look amazing. You know, if I did decide to go out to the bars one night, you know, guys were finally paying attention to me. And like, you know, I was becoming one of like not to sound cocky in any way, but I was becoming one of the prettier girls in the group, and I was no longer like the fat other friend, you know. So
then all of your friends started to hate you then, though.
Not at all.
They're like, God damn it, Erin, you had to go and take my spot.
But it was nice to like have the spotlight shift for a second, but that was only in public. So then back when I was, you know, in private, I still really struggled with my body image. So I could lose 10 pounds and not even see it. I was constantly relying on validation from others to like make myself feel good. And so with most people, I started to gain some of the weight back along with muscle and stuff. So like that was kind of hard because the validation from others starts to go away, especially like now that I've been in this world for so long. Like people don't feel the need to come up to me and be like, oh my God, you look so great. Like I look the same that I looked pretty much like 3 years ago. It's not like anything's changed. And so I really had to find like some inner peace with how I looked in my own body. And that was kind of a journey in and of itself. And something else that people don't realize is how much nutrition does affect your mental health. So I didn't learn this until probably about a year ago, but carbs are like a precursor to serotonin. So someone like myself who struggles with like some mental health issues, when you take away some carbs, I mean, in the average person, they're going to get cranky. They're going to, you know, like have a lower sex drive. They're going to want to like sleep more. Like for me, my anxiety shot up, my depression shot up. You know, I struggled with all those as well. So getting control over my body image was even harder too. And it kind of, it's just like this cluster, like one relies on the other to improve your mental and your physical health, your body image, all of that. Like one has to improve before the other.
Oh, absolutely 100%. And just this whole experience with me doing this podcast has just been so eye-opening, because so many women, I mean, guys I don't think really understand, you know, the societal pressures that women go through. They never really truly understand that, because guys, I mean, they mainly just focus, you know, a lot on themselves. They just don't realize, you know, how many women that we think, you know, just look great and good, that really really just struggle with that stuff. That it's just a huge thing that really, it doesn't get talked about enough. So, I mean, I love hearing those types of stories because it was a huge eye opener for me. Where like, even some of my friends then started to come up to me, they're like, oh yeah, I've suffered with that too. Like, I've really struggled with my weight. And I was like, oh really? I could never have told. So
Right.
it's really one of those huge things. But what do you think? I mean, because it has gotten better, I'd say, because there's so much more support now, especially for people. But what are some ways that you still think need to be worked on, or how they could be helped out on, especially for women when it comes to their physical and mental well-being?
So I think some of the trends in the fitness industry need to be called out for the effects that it can have on their mental health. And a lot of people think that just means like idolizing, you know, the ripped skinny girl. And there are brands that are coming out that are kind of that are helping. Like Aerie has their whole like real body models and all that stuff, and all those things help. But again, like for instance, like the fad of like low carb diets can be so detrimental to someone's mental health, and nobody talks about that. And you know, counting macros can be great for some people, but in others, like if you're just teaching them how to follow a diet, you're not teaching them how to actually feel free in the foods that they're choosing and like actually feel autonomous in their body and their choices. And so, you know, it's so easy to tell someone to follow a meal plan and follow a fitness plan, but then if you're not teaching them the confidence to go out and kind of do it on their own as well, they're going to just kind of sink mentally and feel, you know, less than their coach and less than all these other people who seem to be doing fine, you know, around food and fitness. And so I really do believe that, as much as all of us want to be selling, you know, like plans and diets and, you know, one-on-one coaching, what coaches really should be focusing on, and it's not long-term profits, which is hard to, you know, get people to accept, but it's teaching your clients to do this on their own. Because if you're like, yeah, you can make a client super ripped, but if they're not happy and they can't sustain this on their own, what are you doing? Like you're destroying their mental health. And so that's kind of the thing that I am trying to do with my own coaching and my own profile.
I mean, I couldn't thank you enough for bringing that up, because one of my biggest points that I love to make is, you know, so many people are taught how to work out. They're not taught how to keep the weight off, though, once they've lost it. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest thing. That's why shows, I mean, my biggest pet peeve are shows like The Biggest Loser, when it came on, where you'd have these people go on and lose 200 pounds, and then they'd go and check in with them a year later, and they'd gain 250 pounds back because they weren't taught the proper ways how to keep it off. I mean, you can teach someone to just say, hey, lift these weights and then not eat as much, and then you're going to lose a lot of weight. But then guess what? Once they reach that goal that they've been thought of, then they'll say, okay, now what? How do I keep this? Because I don't know, you know, really what to do, and I can't really lose any more weight. So then they'll start to go back to their eating habits, and then they won't work out as much, because I mean, it's just a never-ending cycle. And it's just one of those things that I really love to stress, where you got to teach people how to keep the weight off too once it gets lost, because otherwise it's just going to be a waste of time, honestly. And now, I mean, two of my favorite questions that I like to ask, you know, every guest that I have on this show. For my first one of the things that I realized when I started working out and getting bigger and stronger, I mean, the one negative thing for me was that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to, you're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars.
That's true.
I mean, I'm still at home with my parents for the next few months until I move out. But like every time they bring home groceries, I have to, you know, basically lift the car into the driveway with all the groceries in it. So, I mean, has that been a similar experience with you? Because like, I mean, with sorority sisters or any other people where they just know that you've been working out, do they just assume that you can then do favors for them when it comes to like opening pickle jars and stuff like that? Has that been similar for you?
Kind of. Less with my friends and more with my own family. So with the holidays coming up, especially, we do Christmas big at my house. We have like 9 Christmas trees, and
wow.
Yeah.
What? 9?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really ridiculous. We spend a whole day just taking things up from our basement and storage. And luckily, my boyfriend, he also is like a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
So now they've kind of been asking him too. But as soon as I became like stronger and stuff, yeah, that was the first thing. Is I got calls to just come home from college to lift things out of the basement, which I don't mind doing when I'm there, but making the trip just to lift a box can be somewhat frustrating.
I mean, last summer, every weekend almost, I got calls from friends who were like, Ryan, can you come and help me lift the couch that I have? Like, I'm moving out. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully that will end soon, but I do realize, you know, they kind of do recognize that, you know, it's the hard work and stuff. But now, probably my favorite question to ask, and before I ask this, like, again, this is a multi-million-dollar idea for anyone out there, but when it comes to fit women and women, you know, with muscle, your clothing options can be limited. I mean, like I said, if you have big shoulders, dresses are somewhat out of the picture. Jeans are another thing we've heard that, like, is almost non-existent. What are some ways that you sort of compensate for the fact that a lot of the other clothing options that people can wear are not suitable for you?
I'm still figuring this out. Yeah. This is, yep, you hit the nail on the head. I was complaining the other day because my winter coat is so big around my legs and my shoulders pop out of it now. And so I don't even know what size I am in winter coats and I can't move my arms. So yeah, I mean, like when it comes to business casual, which is where like I work in a corporate office. So when it comes to dressing for work, you know, I wear a lot of skirts because then, you know, I don't have to worry about my thighs and my quads and things like that. I wear a lot of stuff that's somewhat stretchier, or can be tied at the waist. When it comes to button-down shirts, it's hit or miss. Yeah. You know, I went, again, when I was really small and had no muscle, I was like a small medium. Now, like, I could be an extra large and have to get tailored into like a medium waist just because my shoulders and my arms, or else it looks like I'm like hulking out on top and just like swallowed up at the bottom. A lot of tank tops and sweaters and things like that. You make do, but...
Oh, yeah. I mean, we hear that a lot. Like I always said, everyone out there, if you're a fashion designer or something, I mean, that's one of those things. It's a multi-million-dollar idea. Get on it. But now we go to our audience favorite and my personal favorite part of the podcast, a little questionnaire. I'm going to ask Erin here about a dozen or so questions, see how she stacks up to all the other health and fitness guests that we've had on the show. So for our first question, what is your go-to workout song at the moment?
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm going to have to look at my phone for a second.
All right, no problem.
I can tell you. I have a whole new playlist. You know what? And I'm ashamed to say this. I think it's going to be Fifi by 6ix9ine. Either that or I'm a huge fan of pop punk. So anything by Neck Deep, I'll probably listen. I'll even just throw their whole album on. So either like really trashy pop hip hop or pop punk.
Hey, whatever gets that workout done. But now, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could work out with any celebrity, who would it be?
Oh gosh, Dana Lynn Bailey, but I feel like that's such a given. Yeah. She's incredible, and she's such a positive person, and so is her husband. So yeah, I would love just to meet her. Nonetheless, I have to work out with her.
That would be, I mean, I didn't know this, but the college that I graduated from, I went to Minnesota State Mankato, but this last August, or fall, right after school started, she went there to, like, open up a gym there, so she was there for a day, and I was like, oh, if I would have known in advance, and then her boyfriend was there, so I was like, oh, if I would have known in advance, I probably would have went down there, but yeah, so she's definitely one of those up there. I mean, I'd probably just go with Arnold, just because, you know, it's Arnold, but, I mean, that's a given. But now, out of all the celebrities on the planet, if you could train any celebrity, who would it be?
Oh, God. Melissa McCarthy.
Ooh.
I think that would be cool. Like I said, I've had the stomach bug for the past couple of days, so I've been binge watching Gilmore Girls, and she's hilarious. And I know she's gotten some like press for gaining and losing, and when she got more popular, losing a bunch of weight. So I think it'd be interesting to work with her.
Oh yeah, that would be definitely great. And that's our first Melissa McCarthy that we get. I mean, we normally get people like Kevin Hart, but problem with that is that, I mean, you're gonna get the best ab workout of all time, but there's no way you're gonna get a workout done because he's just gonna make you laugh the entire time.
Right.
So that's definitely the one problem. So now, what is one item that you always need to have in your fridge?
In my fridge, oh, this is so basic, but chicken. Oh, chicken or eggs, yeah.
Chicken and eggs, yeah. I mean, that's what you gotta have. That's not basic. Now, basic would be like if you had like one person said like water, and I was like, okay, really? I was like, okay. I mean, whatever floats your boat, I guess. But now, what is one thing that people who follow you on Instagram would be surprised to know about you if they met you in person?
I think actually that I listen to pop punk music. You know, like I said, I'm a sorority girl, and I'm a marketing and psychology major, and I'm in this fitness world, and I am pretty girly. I like clothes and makeup and all that kind of stuff. But my music taste is like kind of like angry and sad, and so when people usually hear that, they're a little surprised.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely. I know when you said pop punk, I mean, it's like I've had some pop punk bands on here, and I was like, oh wow, that's their fan base is people like this. I was like, wow, they're marketing completely wrong then, I guess. So
yeah, no, I've listened to pop punk and like punk rock since probably 7th grade, maybe 6th grade.
Yeah.
And I think that's always going to be kind of my thing.
What is one thing that you would change? You know, not about like bodybuilding, but about like the health and fitness industry in general. What is one thing that you would change if you had the all-knowing power to do so?
Oh, just more education on mental health. 100%. Across the board on nutrition and exercise regimens and coaching, understanding that your client is a human being and the psychology of their brain when you're working with them.
Absolutely. And also, like you said, knowing that your mental health is going to be way more important than your physical health, because when it comes, I've had so many people on here. I mean, I've had some of the most in shape people on the planet on this podcast, and they tell me, they're like, I started working out because I thought I'd feel good about myself if I got, you know, really ripped and shredded. But once I got like that, you know, I still I didn't feel any better because I
Yeah.
never worked on what was in here. I just worked on what was in my body. So it's like, you got to work on your mind too when you're working on your body as well. Otherwise, it's just going to be a one-sided thing where you can be in great shape, but you still might not feel good about yourself, or you can be in bad shape and you can feel good about yourself. I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, they both kind of have to go together if you really want to have things work out in the long run. That's what I always love to say. But now, what is one thing that you would die to have if it went up for auction?
Oh, God, I've never even thought about that. One for auction. I'm really going to have to think about this for a second.
No problem.
You know what? And you're going to laugh. This is so stupid. I've always wanted like a water park.
Ooh, that's not stupid. That's pretty cool.
But
yeah.
like, I remember when I was in 7th grade telling my mom that, and to this day, I think that would be so cool.
Yeah, that would be awesome too. I honestly don't know what I'd get mine. I mean, I have so many options, but you know, I asked the question, so I don't have to answer. So that's the one good thing about it. So, and now, if you could go back in time and live in any other historical period other than the present, what would be the area that you would want to live in?
Probably the 60s or the 70s.
Yeah.
It's, you know, people in general were becoming more liberal and starting to feel like they had more control of their lives outside of, you know, like stereotypes and gender roles and all that kind of stuff. And I think it'd be really cool to be a part of a lot of civil rights movements and things of that matter.
See, you know, like I think about that type of stuff and if it would be good for me, but like being a guy, that era would not be good for me because I'd probably be drafted and have to go to like Vietnam or something like that. So whenever girls say like, yeah, the 60s or 70s, I was like, yeah, that might have been a good, decent time for you, but for me, like I would not want to be in Vietnam. So that's a different, and then like they'll say like the 30s or 40s and I was like, yeah, okay, the 1940s, another not so good time to be a guy. So, you know, for me, you know, I'm very complacent right here with where I'm at right now. But yeah, I mean, for me personally, I'd probably do like the 80s or something like that because the technology wasn't so far back as like the 60s and 70s where some of the technology that we use today was still back then where like you could still do a lot of things in it. I mean, the music was so much better. So I
actually do agree with that.
That's just one whole thing too. Where I mean, yeah, my entire soundtrack, my workout soundtrack is like 80s songs basically or 90s stuff. But yeah, the music. I mean, I do a whole podcast about what the hell happened to the music industry. So that's just a whole different topic. But now, what was the last TV show that you binge watched?
Yeah, so like I said, I've been in bed for the past 3 days. Half of it's been Gilmore Girls, and then the other half has been Bob Ross. And I know it sounds hilarious, but being sick makes me super anxious. It's one of like my I have like a big phobia of throwing up, so the stomach flu is a hot mess for me. And Bob Ross is the most calming human on the face of the planet. And if you're ever anxious, turn him on.
Yeah, I cannot believe that he used to be an Army drill sergeant. That's what he did before. Yeah.
I was reading up on that, and he was in the Navy or something like that for 20 years.
And he's like, yeah, I got tired of yelling at people, so I decided that I'd never yell at anyone ever again. So I was like, I could not imagine Bob Ross chewing someone out at a base camp or whatever. That's one of those things where I would pay to have someone film that just so I could see like what he was actually like. But yeah, I watched those. I mean, I used to watch those things. They'd like help me go to sleep because like it's so dull. Where I just be like, oh yeah, I'm so tired now. Just watching this. But I tried to paint one of those things, and I was like, okay, he does it so easily. But mine looked all right. But it was just, yeah. I mean, you can't really do with that. And then I mean, another fun fact about me, I don't have like a phobia of throwing up, but I really don't like it. But I have never thrown up from drinking, not once in my life, no matter what.
Really?
No matter how drunk I've gotten. I mean, this marks the anniversary actually. Well, actually tonight, since Thanksgiving isn't the same date, but 2 years ago, I mean, I had a time where, you know, I'll just say it like I couldn't even, you know, I couldn't even talk. That's how inebriated I was. Never thrown up. Never thrown up. I get hungover really much, but never thrown up from drinking. It's a blessing and a curse, but you know, I don't know how that happens. But now, sort of moving on from that topic now, what is your favorite TV show of all time?
Oh gosh, probably like The Office. I am a diehard Office fan, or Parks and Rec. It's basically the same show.
Yep. Oh, that's what I hate. Yeah, people like Parks and Rec is so original. It's like, no, it's not. Watch The Office. It's the exact same thing except with new characters and a different setting. But it is very funny. I mean, Ron Swanson is one of my favorite characters of all time. But yeah, for me, it's The Office and Friends. It depends on the day.
Right, I watch Friends too all the time.
Well, and a fun fact, in 2 weeks, we are going to have Ross's first wife, the lesbian Carol, who played her, the actor who played her. She's coming on the show because she started a charity, and I've been emailing her the last few months, and she started the charity, and I said, hey, you can come on and talk about the charity. And she said, oh yeah, absolutely. So we set up a date. I think it's 2 weeks from yesterday. So, and then I told her, I said, just to let you know though, half the questions are going to be friends questions. She goes, oh yeah, I get that all the time. So I'm just coming up with like the 30 best friends questions, just throwing them at her like as soon as she gets on. So we're gonna definitely get the scoop, and I'll send you the link to that, because I mean everyone wants to see that, and I'm just so excited to have her on the show.
That sounds great.
Yeah, but now, what is a guilty pleasure TV, or what is a guilty pleasure movie that you enjoy?
Anything with like Robert Downey Jr. before he turned 30. It's very specific. So there's this really old movie called Only You, and not a lot of people have seen it. I think it's from late 80s, probably, maybe early 90s. And I'm obsessed with it. And me and my mom have like sat down and watched every single Robert Downey Jr. movie when he was young. And I love all of them, and most of them aren't great. But
one of his best was Less Than Zero. I really, really like that. He had a great performance in that. I mean, even though, I mean, that was really great. But I mean, if you're looking for Robert Downey Jr. in a funny and sexy role, I mean, that's not a movie that you want to watch. That's not a movie that you want to watch for that. I mean, he was a good actor for a completely different thing. I won't spoil it for anyone, but yeah, it is a very good movie. But yeah, that's when you said like Robert Downey Jr. on the third, I was like, oh, even Less Than Zero. But I was like, oh, okay, I guess that works. But yeah, I mean, yeah, he had some of the best. I mean, even I was watching Weird Science a couple nights ago, and that was you know, he's. I mean, it's one of those things where I didn't even realize that was it. I was like, is that really Robert Downey Jr.? Like, I didn't even recognize him. And I was like, oh, I looked him up and I was like, oh yeah, I guess it is. But for me, I will never admit this in person. And for any of my guy friends that listen to these podcasts, close your ears right now. But The Princess Bride is my ultimate go-to. It's my date night movie for anyone. It's my ultimate. I mean, it's one of those movies where if it's on TV, I was writing my thesis for college, and I stopped writing my thesis for 2 hours to watch it because I saw that it was coming on TV. And my thesis was due that weekend. So I mean, it put me back a little bit, but you know, I ended up getting it done. Absolutely. So now, if you could go back, I know this is only a few years, but I normally ask this to people who are a lot older. But if you could go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
To stop trying so hard. When I had no idea what I wanted to do for college, like most people. I actually at the time smoked a lot of marijuana, and really I thought I was really artsy and was really trying to go into, when I went to college, my first semester, I was in art school. So, I was really trying to live up to that, that persona. And I think if I just would have chilled out and stopped putting so much pressure on myself to be this high-performing student, but also this artsy-fartsy girl and this amazing dancer, I think I would have figured out my life a whole lot sooner.
Yeah, that's great advice. And for me personally, I mean, realize you're not going to please everybody, because that's a huge thing. I was a huge people pleaser back then, where I was just like, you're not going to please everyone. So that's definitely my piece of advice. But now, if someone were to walk up to you on the street and say like, oh my God, you look amazing. I want to, sort of get in better shape myself. I want to adapt to a more healthy and fit lifestyle. I mean, other than saying like, obviously you should come and talk to me about it, or you should, follow me. What would be like the main piece of advice that you would give that person in order for them to be successful?
Take it one step at a time. So many people want to throw all the information down your throat, tell you, again, try this diet, go to the gym and lift these weights, do this amount of cardio. Just go to the gym. Like, I don't care what you do. I don't care how long you're there, but just adapt that habit. Make it part of your schedule, make it part of your routine. And if it's right for you and you like it, you'll start going because you want to and because you love it. So that's my thing. Just get there. Just be present and show up.
Absolutely. In my personal biggest piece of advice, what I always tell them is it's going to take time. Because like you said, especially with this generation where everyone just wants it now and they want it, they want it yesterday. They want those results right now. I mean, I want to look good for the holidays. I want to lose, 75 pounds right before Christmas. I mean, I hear so much crap like that, and I'm just like, okay, you don't realize like literally how long it takes and how much of the hard work it really takes, where it's just, letting people know that and be like, hey, it's going to suck for the first few months because you might not see that much of results, where you're still going to be looking in the mirror. I mean, it's a completely different thing. Like, I always like to make the comparison where if you're an alcoholic and you stop drinking, you automatically there's results. Like, you automatically feel the benefits of not doing it. Where if you start working out and exercising, you can still look at yourself in the mirror maybe weeks later and you could think that nothing's changed, because it might not seem to you like nothing's changed. It's just, it takes so much, it's such a time commitment where it's just, you have to be invested all in it. And just realize though, once you start seeing those gains, it becomes addictive, and you really, really, really can really start to benefit from it. It's just a huge thing that I really, really love to stress. So what really inspired you to also help out the women with the mental and physical wellness? Had that always been something that you'd really want to help people out with, or did it just take you to adapt that lifestyle where then you realize like, hey, I can really help others, help out others with this?
So, like I said, I've struggled with my mental health my entire life, pretty much since as far back as I can remember. And so when I was like 10, I wanted to write a book about overcoming anxiety disorders, which is a lofty goal for a 10-year-old. And then in middle school, I kind of decided I wanted to be a therapist. Mm-hmm. And I ditched that, went to art school, went to business school, and now I'm back to a psychology degree. So I've always wanted to help women. I've always wanted to help people in the mental health realm. And then as soon as I realized the connection to physical health, it was like, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to talk about. And I realized that women suffer from the same mental health disorders that I've struggled with more commonly than men. And when you want to include all like the disordered eating habits as well, and body image problems with our society, I know it's what I meant to do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, I gotta definitely give a warning to your boyfriend then. Be careful when you're dating someone who's a psychology major, because they are going to overanalyze you. I had one couple on the show who were both psychology majors, and I was like, okay, that's gotta be the most interesting relationship of all time, because like every move that you do, they must be just analyzing each other and like taking notes and just like comparing notes. No, I always like to make jokes about psychologists because they tend to be some really fun people that I like to talk to. I mean, it's different than some of the engineers that I had. Like my best friend's an engineer, and I mean that person's just socially awkward as hell. So it's just, I mean, it's just everyone seems to have like their own sort of niche where when you talk to people and especially when they go to college, you're like, what's your major? And they're like, oh, so and so. You're like, oh yeah, that fits kind of with your personality. But yeah, I mean, I mean, thank you so much for coming on. And other than your Instagram, are there other ways that people can sort of get a hold of you if they wanted some advice or if they just wanted to get in touch?
Yeah, I mean, Instagram's definitely the best way. It's the easiest way to get in touch with me, but you can always shoot me an email. It's just my last name, first initial 96 at gmail.com.
Yeah, I'll definitely leave a link down below. And is there anyone that you would like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Hey, Mom.
Hey, believe it or not, you're going to be like the 135th guest, and that's the first ever Hey Mom that we have ever got for our shout out section. So we get something new every day for the podcast listeners. Something new just happened today. And is there any last piece of advice that you would like to especially give women out there before we wrap things up about just simple ways that they can start with that health and with that mental and physical wellness?
Yeah, just give it a try and stick with it for a month. That's just give it a try and stick with it for a month. If you hate it, find something else, but if not, you'll fall in love with it. Is
there any specific routine or method that you recommend that helped you out specifically, or is it just find your own thing out there and just what are some resources that they could look into?
I would say take a look at your schedule and figure out what's best for you. There are people that are going to tell you that working out in the morning, night, evening, afternoon is going to be best. What I found is that you need to find what works best for you and makes you the least stressed. So figure out what routine makes the most sense for you, whether that's 3 times a week, 4 times a week, 6 days a week, whatever. And just, hold yourself accountable for a month.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And again, we cannot thank Erin for coming on this show. It was really, really great having you on. Everyone go and follow her. I'll leave her links down below. Really, really recommend it. It's really inspiring. Like I always say, if you go and follow her, you will be inspired to get off the couch and stop eating those Twinkies and maybe adapt a more healthy and fit lifestyle. And again, we cannot thank her enough for coming on the show. And this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the Spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.